The market city of Aurelio's station shimmered beneath artificial suns, a gleaming artery of commerce floating at the crossroads of 12 interstellar trade routes. Its corridors rang with the calls of merchants, the hiss of air recyclers, and the overlapping chatter of 100 species. Everything in Aurelio's had a price. Everything. Captain Jonah Red didn't like places like this. He walked with hands in the pockets of his worn spacer's coat, boots tapping on polished alloy floors. Around him, alien traders displayed wares from across the galaxy. Gravity-distorted gemstones, bottled nebula gas, living fabrics that rippled like water. Jonah had seen wonders before, but something about Aurelio's made his skin crawl. Not the aliens he'd served beside dozens of species during the frontier wars, but the way everything felt transactional. Cold. Calculated. He was here to purchase ship parts, nothing more. That was the plan. Then he heard the crying. It was faint, high-pitched, trembling, barely audible over the noise of the crowd. But it stopped him mid-step. Jonah turned toward a narrow side corridor lined with stalls selling exotic pets, bioengineered curiosities, and entertainment drones. The crying came from there. He followed it. At the end of the corridor, a bright holographic sign pulsed in several languages. Living playthings, perfect companions, obedient and PRE-trained. Inside the stall stood a merchant, tall, insectoid, glossy black carapace polished to mirror sheen. Glass containment pods lined the walls. Inside them, small figures moved. Jonah's stomach tightened. They were humanoid. Not human, but close enough to strike something primal. They had soft skin, large expressive eyes, delicate hands. Some sat curled in corners of their pods. Others stood stiffly, staring forward with empty, rehearsed smiles. All wore thin collars that glowed faintly at the base of their necks. The crying came from one of them. She was smaller than the others, perhaps adolescent by human standards. Pale lavender skin, silver hair tied back crudely. Her eyes, bright, luminous gold, were full of terror. Jonah stepped closer. The merchant noticed him. Interested mammal? It clicked in trade standard. Fine selection today. Rare empathic constructs. Designed for companionship. Responsive. Adaptive. Will bond quickly. Jonah didn't answer at first. He stared at the girl. She looked back. Their eyes met through the glass. Her lips parted. The crying stopped, but not the fear. That stayed. What species? Jonah asked quietly. Not species, the merchant corrected. Product line. Gynoid variant, organic synthesis. Grown, trained, behaviorally conditioned. Legally classified as non-sentient service organisms. No rights. No liabilities. Jonah's jaw tightened. She looks pretty damn sentient to me. The merchant's mandibles flexed in amusement. Appearances increase buyer satisfaction. They feel gratitude, obedience, affection. That is all. Inside the pod, the girl pressed her hand against the glass. Jonah felt something stir deep in his chest, an old instinct born in war zones and refugee camps. A memory of children crying in bombed-out cities. Of cages. Of chains. He exhaled slowly. How much? He asked. The merchant's eyes glittered. Premium model. Emotional responsiveness high. Slight behavioral instability noted. Reduced price. 8,000 credits. Jonah winced. That was most of what he had. He thought of his ship, the repairs he needed. Thought of walking away. Then the girl whispered something. The pod's sound dampening was imperfect. Just enough for him to hear. Please. One word. Barely audible, but unmistakably human in its meaning. Jonah pulled out his credit chip. He named her Lyra. At first, she didn't speak. She sat in the co-pilot's chair of Jonah's small freighter, shoulders hunched, hands folded tightly in her lap. The collar around her neck pulsed faintly with a control signal. Jonah didn't know much about synthetic organics, but he knew shackles when he saw them. "You hungry?" he asked gently. Lyra glanced at him. Her eyes flickered. "Nutritional intake scheduled at vendor discretion," she recited. Jonah opened a ration pack and handed it to her. She stared at it like it might explode. "It's okay," he said. "You can eat when you want here." Slowly, she took it. They traveled in silence for several hours, leaving Virelios behind. Stars stretched into streaks as Jonah engaged jump transit. When they emerged in open space, far from station patrols, Jonah stood up. "I'm going to remove that collar," he said. Lyra froze. "It'll hurt," Jonah admitted. "But it's designed to enforce obedience. I'm not keeping you on a leash." Her breathing quickened. "I am property," she said softly. "Removal may cause neurological collapse." "Maybe," Jonah said. "But I'll take that risk if you will." She looked up at him, fear and something else warring in her eyes. "What happens if I am free?" she asked. Jonah smiled faintly. "Then you decide what happens next." A long moment passed. Then Lyra nodded. Jonah worked carefully. The collar resisted at first, emitting warning chirps. But he dealt with military restraint tech before. Eventually, it came loose. The moment it hit the floor, Lyra gasped. Her eyes widened. Her body trembled. Jonah steadied her gently. Minutes passed. Then Lyra exhaled shakily. "I am still functioning," she whispered. Jonah handed her water. "Told you." For the first time, Lyra smiled. Not the rehearsed product smile, but something fragile and real. Days passed. Lyra learned quickly. Faster than Jonah expected. She explored the ship. Asked questions about stars, planets, food, music. Jonah answered them all. At night, she would sit by the viewport, watching galaxies drift by. One evening, she spoke quietly. "I was grown in a vat," she said. "We were taught songs, movements, how to obey tone cues, how to please, how to be what buyers wanted." She hesitated. "Some of us were discarded." Jonah's hands clenched into fists. "Why did you cry in the stall?" he asked. Lyra looked away. "A buyer inspected me. He said I was defective. Emotional instability. I would have been recycled." Jonah swallowed hard. "You're not defective," he said. "You're alive." Lyra studied him. "You are strange, human." "Yeah," Jonah chuckled. "We've been told." But danger was already closing in. 3 days later, a patrol cruiser appeared on Jonah's scanners. Corporate enforcement. They hailed him. Unregistered biosynthetic property detected on board, came the cold mechanical voice. "Return the asset immediately." Lyra stood behind Jonah, silent, afraid. Jonah switched off the comm. "Well," he muttered, "guess we're doing this the hard way." His freighter wasn't built for combat, but he'd survived worse odds in war. He plotted a course into a nearby asteroid belt and hit the thrusters. The chase was brutal. Energy blasts rocked the hull. Systems sparked. Lyra clung to a railing, terrified. "Why are you doing this?" she shouted over the alarms. "I am only a toy." Jonah yelled back. "You're not a toy." The freighter plunged into the asteroid field. Jonah maneuvered through tumbling rock and debris, using gravity pockets and sudden turns. The cruiser followed, but it was larger, slower. A misjudged turn sent an asteroid scraping the cruiser's hull. Then another. Its shields flared, failed, collapsed. One final impact broke its engines. Silence returned. Jonah slumped in his seat, breathing hard. Lyra stared out at the drifting wreckage. "I am free," she asked. Jonah nodded. Yeah, kid. You are. Weeks later, they reached the frontier world of Havenfall, a quiet colony where humans, aliens, and free synths lived without corporate chains. As they descended through the atmosphere, Lyra looked at Jonah. What happens now? Jonah smiled. Now you get to live, learn, decide who you want to be. Lyra considered this. Then she said softly, I want a name. Jonah chuckled. Already gave you one. No, she replied. That name was chosen by you. I want one chosen by me. Jonah leaned back. Fair enough. She thought for a long time. Then she said, I am Lyrabelle. Jonah extended his hand. She shook it. Nice to meet you, Lyrabelle. As the ship touched down, a new chapter began. One where a being built to be a toy stepped into a world of her own choosing. And somewhere among the stars, the galaxy quietly learned an old human truth. No one, no matter how they are made, is ever meant to be owned. Weeks later, the freighter drifted above the world of Havenfall. From orbit, the planet looked gentle. Blue oceans, scattered green continents, a lacework of golden city lights. Nothing about it screamed danger or chains. Jonah hoped it truly was what the rumors said, a sanctuary beyond corporate reach, founded by deserters, freed synths, and humans who'd grown tired of watching the galaxy pretend slavery was just another business model. Lyra stood at the viewport, hands resting against the glass. Her reflection stared back at her. Silver hair, golden eyes, soft violet skin. She still looked like a product, but she no longer felt like one. What if they don't accept me? She asked quietly. I was made in a factory. I don't even know if I count as a person. Jonah set the ship on descent trajectory. Kid, half the folks down there were told the same thing at some point. You'll fit in just fine. Atmospheric entry painted the hull orange. The ship rattled. Lyra gripped the seat, but this time it wasn't fear of punishment or obedience protocols. It was the simple nervousness of someone starting a life. They landed on a broad Durasteel pad. Figures approached, humans, insectoid aliens, tall crystalline beings, and several synths whose metal frames gleamed in the sunlight. No one carried weapons. No one looked shocked to see her. A woman in a worn pilot jacket stepped forward. Short hair, steel gray eyes, a prosthetic arm that hummed softly. Captain Jonah Red, she said. Long time since the war. You bring us something interesting. Jonah gestured toward Lyra. Not something, he said. Someone. The woman studied Lyra carefully. Not like a buyer. Not like a technician. Like a person assessing another person. Welcome to Havenfall, she said at last. No one owns anyone here. You're safe. Lyra blinked. Her chest tightened. Something warm and unfamiliar gathered behind her ribs. Safe. No command followed. No behavioral cue. No forced smile. Just truth. That night, Jonah and Lyra sat on a hillside overlooking the colony. Stars filled the sky like spilled diamonds. Lyra held a mug of warm synth tea with both hands. I keep expecting someone to activate a command phrase, she said. To tell me to kneel. To perform. To be useful. Jonah stared at the horizon. Takes time to wash chains out of the mind. She looked at him. Why did you save me? He thought about it. About the crying he'd heard. About the war. About burned cities and children behind fences. About all the times he'd followed orders and later wished he hadn't. Because someone once saved me, he said simply. And because humans, well, we're stubborn about certain things. We don't like seeing people treated like objects, even when the galaxy says it's normal. Lyra considered this. I was built to be a toy, she said. But you saw someone worth saving. Jonah smiled. Exactly. Silence settled comfortably between them. Then Lyra said, "I wish to choose my own name." Jonah lifted an eyebrow. "Already doing that, huh?" She nodded. "A name given is still a chain. A name chosen is a beginning." She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they shone with quiet certainty. "My name is Lyrabel." Jonah extended his hand. "Well then, Lyrabel, welcome to your life." She shook his hand. "Not as property, not as product, but as a person." Months later, rumors spread through the trade lanes of a human captain who stole a corporate asset and escaped impossible odds, of a lavender-skinned girl walking freely among the stars, of Havenfall, a world where toys refused to remain toys. Merchants whispered angrily. Corporations issued warrants. Enforcement fleets searched, but they never found her. Because once a human decides someone deserves freedom, the galaxy learns a hard lesson. You can build a being to obey, but you cannot manufacture a soul.